Just a few more moments. All right, Kyle, you may begin whenever you like.
All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the May 26, 2021 meeting of the CB6 Executive Committee. My name is Kyle Thide, and I'm the chair of CB6. This meeting is being called to order at 6:35 p.m. Tonight, we are joined by District Manager Jesus Perez. For members of the public who are attending, you can raise any questions or comments that you have through the Q&A feature of Zoom. If there is time following the committee's discussion, we will field questions from the public. Tonight's minutes will be taken by CB6 Assistant Secretary, Matt Bondi. So we will now take attendance by roll call. Please answer present when your name is called.
Thide. Sorry, y'all, I was muted. Kyle Thide.
Present.
LV Barosa.
Present.
I'm here. Claire Brennan.
Present.
Beatrice Disman.
Present.
Richard Eggers.
Present.
Adam Harkey.
Here.
Molly is not here. John Keller.
Here.
Kavitha Matthew.
Here.
Kevin O'Keefe.
Present.
Matt Roberts.
Present.
Gene Santoro.
Sonokwe.
All right. Seema Shah. Seema? I thought I saw her.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry,
Good.
guys, I'm present.
All right. Sandro Sherrod. Sandro? Mark Thompson.
Present.
Corinne Vanderdonk.
Present.
Brian Van Nieuwenhoven.
Present.
Okay, thank you all. We have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Matt. The agenda for tonight's meeting appears on the screen before you. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda as stated. So members of the executive committee, if you object to adopting the agenda, please raise your hand through Zoom. All right, seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. The minutes from the April 21st meeting were distributed to executive committee members ahead of time by the board office. If there is no objection, we will adopt these minutes. Committee members, if you object to adopting the minutes, please raise your hand through Zoom. Seeing no objections, the minutes from the April 21st meeting are adopted. So tonight, in order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. First, no one may speak until granted the floor. 2, committee members, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. If you click the participants icon, the participants panel should appear and you should find the raise hand function there. If you still have technical difficulty, please click the chat icon and relay your difficulty there. Next, the chat function should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you are having or to state in writing information, such as an email address or link that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. When a committee member is given the floor to speak, I will identify you and you can unmute yourself so that you can speak. And lastly, we are required by executive order to create a verbatim transcript of the meeting, so please keep all questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. So we'll now begin with tonight's agenda. I have a very quick chair's report. We'll hear more information from Jesus in his district manager's report, but I just wanted to mention again, based on all of the updated work plans that were submitted, I will be sending out meeting calendar invites to speak with each of you. about your updates and looking at the year ahead. And I will also include Jesus and Brendan and our new staff member on those calls as well. So if there are any other last minute updates before you receive that calendar invite, please let me know. But other than that, nothing else from me. So we'll move on to the district manager's report.
Good evening. My report's actually super short. We're in the process of filling a vacant position left vacated by Brendan when he was promoted. This has actually been in the works for some time, so we actually began the search well over a month ago. So we're nearing the end, the tail end of that. So there will be a resolution for June's full board. So, but that's all I really can say right now. And I think we'll have a lot to talk about during the committee reports, so I'll keep my report at that.
All right, thank you, Jesus. So we'll now move on to the committee business. First up, we have Environment and Parks. So Kevin. Kevin, you there? I don't know if you're on mute.
I was on mute. Thank you. Thank you for putting that up. I don't know if that was Brendan, for the agenda for next month. One of the items is for the combined heat and power plant. It was interesting because Community Board 3 had addressed this at their previous meeting, and they decided to table it until we spoke. So the Stuytown Tenants Association and Stuytown Management have both been invited. Stuytown Tenants Association has said they will be making a presentation. We really just want to see what the update is on this. They were supposed to have a working group that was started already. Stuytown Management has said that it's actually very thorough. Every question that the Tenants Association raised at our committee meeting when we last addressed this has been posed on the Stuytown website and answered by Stuytown. So they feel that they're being transparent and thorough on that. So they may decide not to participate in the committee meeting because they, at this point, I think, feel that all their answers are public on their website. Really nothing to add to the agenda other than that.
You want to talk a little bit about adding the school construction authority items to your
Yeah, I
agenda?
didn't know if you wanted to wait. We're going to have a meeting on this tomorrow, Kyle. Did you, I don't want to overstep your.
Yeah, so just wanted to mention that these issues will now be on Environment and the Parks Committee. Previously, before it was on Youth and Education, which kind of made sense, but not really, because it wasn't really involved with education per se, but just with construction. So since a lot of the issues that we've seen in the community regarding these projects have been environmental, whether it's been sanitation or pollutants, things of noise, things of that nature, I've asked Kevin to take that under his committee from now on. So items such as that will be going forward on his agenda. So that's all I wanted to add.
Thank you.
All right, so I see two hands up. Adam?
Thanks. Kevin, can you describe more about item number 5 for the parks improvement on Glick? So we heard an update from the team on Monday in land use regarding the what they want to do for the activation of the pier. So I guess a little bit north of Glick. I'm wondering if that's similar or different.
Yeah, I have not received a preliminary presentation. Steve Simon, of course,
Okay.
Chief of Staff of the Borough Parks Commissioner, had requested the floor originally just for the Detmold item, but he added that very recently, last week. So I have not heard any more than that at this point.
Okay, and I realized I was remiss. So if you don't have the presentation from Monday, we need to forward it to you.
Thank you. That would be helpful. I was going to go back and watch the, but thank you.
Yeah, let me do that right now, actually.
Great.
Awesome. Next up, John.
Yeah, just very briefly, Kevin, if there's anything I could fill you in on as to why this really doesn't belong with education because of the multiple constituencies involved. Any other background that you want from me on this, I'd be very happy. And if Molly were here, I'd suggest she would be someone else very good to speak to on that.
Okay. Well, anything you could add about the multi-agency involvement? Who has their hands in at this point?
Well, basically in the schools themselves, you see, the people who put the trash out don't even report to the principal. I mean, I don't want to take the time of the whole committee up on this, but they don't even report to the principal. The SCA doesn't report to the principal. And there are 7 principals in the school. So finding someone to hold accountable for this is very, very difficult. So I think Kyle's idea of treating this as a sanitation problem and a trash pickup problem and not a school problem was brilliant. I mean, it was just the exact right way to deal with this, because if you try to deal with this through the schools, you ain't gonna get anything done.
But
yeah, and I'll be briefing you about that tomorrow too.
Okay. And if you want me, I'd be happy to provide any other background on that. But it's a multi-school location. No one is really in charge. And if you know anything about the DOE, the school, the sanitation, the food, the bus service, the security, they all report to different people. They don't even report to the principal. I had one principal who loves to tell the story of being kicked out of her own cafeteria because she was trying to tell the chef what she wanted on a meal. I mean, that's how segmented this is.
Wow.
Jean?
Forgot to unmute. Thank you. Yeah, Kevin, if since I'm on land use and I saw the presentation Adam referred to about the Glick Park, it wasn't what we saw. We saw Waterside Pier. And those improvements were, to say the least, minimal. But they also are going to be taking place in July and August. They're going to shut the pier down for the summer, which seems pretty counterintuitive given that we're in the midst of the ESCR and these things are supposed to be mitigating our lack of open space. So I just wanted to raise that now for people to think about. We can discuss it more, I guess, when we get to land use. Thanks.
No, thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions for Kevin? All right. Thank you, Kevin.
Kevin, as far as the guests for the Stuytown combined heat power plant item, have they reached out to you? And
Yes.
Where would be making the connection there so that we know who to send?
Yeah, thank you. And I'll let you know. And I should have, yes, I believe Brendan was copied on that. The Tennis Association did request the floor, and this really was coming out of them going to CB3 and being told you should bring it back up with CB6.
But Brendan has all the contacts he needs to send them the invites that are necessary.
Yes, it'll be Susan Steinberg, and it'll be the new general manager if they decide to participate. It'll probably be the new general manager of Stuytown.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So next up, we have land use and waterfront. Adam.
Right. What fortuitous timing. Okay. So anyway, this is the June 2nd meeting. So we've all sort of been going back and forth in terms of how to handle sort of the 3 outstanding ULURP items. So this includes the hotel and zoning, which will be heard in Kavitha's committee, and then the other 2, which is the health and fitness and the Commodore. And so Jesus reached out to the parties again today, and it seems like they're a little bit more amenable to, well, rather we have some more options. And tonight I'd really like to get a consensus of what we should do with sort of these 3 outstanding items. So Jesus, do you want to chime in and read the alternatives?
Sure. So a few things. I had messages out to all the parties. We finally did hear back from city planning. City planning actually had been confirmed to present the health and fitness text amendment at the special June land use meeting. They are able to do it at the June 3rd strategic community planning meeting. I know there was some interest from strategic community planning of maybe consolidating as much as possible. So that means that the health and fitness text amendment that is currently slated under June 2nd could possibly be moved to June 3rd. This item right here, 175 Park Avenue, cannot be heard at June 2nd. There's a scheduling conflict with that. So if the executive committee is amenable, then we may not necessarily need to have the June 2nd land use committee meeting. That said, it does leave this Commodore Hyatt hotel item sort of without a home. And as far as our options are, well, the developer said that June 7th is a date that they could do. June 7th, however, is the date of the Transportation Committee meeting. And that committee, has a few things on it already. If that is not a palatable option, then we could see about 6/3, June 3rd. I had floated that with the developers of Hyatt Commodore, and they said it was tough for them to make that. That's all they really said, so we can see how tough, if they can overcome this tough situation and actually do it on June 3rd. That would mean that at the June 3rd strategic community planning meeting, there would be this Hyatt Commodore item, the health and fitness text amendment, as well as a text amendment on new hotels. Kavitha has been very, very flexible, and we thank her a million times for her flexibility. So it would be a kind of lengthy meeting, just like Monday's land use was. But if we do it that way, if we can make it work, we won't need to have this special June 2nd land use meeting. Another option is, if we cannot get the developers to present on June 3rd, is that we hold another meeting, a special meeting just for that, where it would probably be on June 8th, maybe. There's nothing going on that night for CB6, or June 9th, which is full board. We have it at the very beginning of full board. We have had hearings, not ULURP hearings ever, right? At least not while I've been here, but we have had presentations at the beginning of full board before. That's an option. I don't know how palatable that is to the committee. We could, if we do it on June 9th at full board, the resolution would pretty much have to be written and all but completely finished well in advance going into full board, so that all we would really need to do is, if the committee, goes one way or the other, put some finishing touches on it, and then it'll be ready to go.
Jesus, Mayor. So with that said, is it possible for June 8th, or is that like the day before full board, or is that out?
We would need to see if the land use committee members are available on that day. We'd have enough to get a quorum. It is kind of, it's a little bit, we'd like to give them more notice, but it's not really possible right now. We can always check. As far as the resolution getting done, if we're willing to have it on the 9th, I don't see what difference the 8th makes. So we could
exactly
have it on the 8th. That way we don't have to have that on top of full board. Another option, we could hear the Hyatt Commodore item on the June 28th land use meeting. That would, of course, mean that there wouldn't be a reso unless the board is willing to come together for a July special full board meeting. But, I don't know how fiercely the CB6 actually wants to comment on this, maybe. It is an item that initially was not going to be referred to us because it is within the confines of Community District 5. There is an appetite on CB5 for us to comment. And given that it is literally across the street from our district, obviously it interests us. But if we can't make it work, I don't know, maybe we just don't do it. We could hear it at the June 28th land use meeting. And then again, I haven't checked with the developers about this far in advance because I didn't think it was really an option, but I could maybe instead of a resolution, submit a letter during the ULURP process. I mean, the BP segment of ULURP has a public response component. The city planning holds a public hearing. I mean, it could be submitted as testimony like that. Or we just forget it. We just forget it. We withdraw our request to city planning to have this thing referred to us. And then, I guess we still could opine as any member of the public could opine, but we would have no official ULURP process for it. So there are a lot of options, but I'd like to see what all you guys respond to.
Personally, I know this has always been sort of an odd one because it is across the street, but however, a lot of at least there will be a lot of immediate impacts, at least in regards to transportation improvements, pedestrian flow, things that public space, the realm of public space. So I think it's important to comment, I'm wondering now, just because of everything, of all the plates that are spinning at once, if it would just make sense, in terms of that commenting, like we can just submit a letter or something like that to sort of, say sort of what we're concerned about, and we hope that they improve or something along those lines. Or if you feel that a reso, would be stronger, I'm open to that as well. So, Kyle, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I was kind of gonna ask you a little bit about how strongly you felt about a letter compared to a resolution. I think in effect, it would be very similar because they'd be looking at CB5's resolution, probably stronger than ours anyway. I think if the dates work, then I think it makes sense to go through a resolution process. But if it's really going to screw everything over, I think for efficiency's sake and to avoid calling the board together over the summer, it might make sense to just do a letter with all of the concerns that has been discussed at a June 28th meeting. But how strongly does everyone feel about that? If we do, Jesus, if we take out the June 28th date and we do like the 8th or the 7th or et cetera, do we know if the developers are even available to make any of those dates, like the 8th or the 9th?
I have told them that they should try and see whether the 8th or the 9th could work. I still haven't heard back. This was done earlier today. Mm-hmm. Once they sort of wrote back and said that the June 3rd would be quote unquote tough for them and they would prefer June 7th. And I was like, well, June 7th is tough for us. So I said, what about the 8th or the 9th? No promises, but what does your schedule look like then? I guess there are a lot of options that I just rattled off. Are there any of them that the committee can find some consensus on? They're like no-goes. We will not do this.
I think the full board option is almost a no-go. It seems to be, it mimics some of the problems that we have potentially doing a joint meeting with CB5 on this. It would just be very big, it'd be unruly, and it would, maybe not unruly, but it would be long. And again, for something that's adjacent and that will affect the district, it will suck up a lot of time and energy. So I wouldn't do that. I mean, for me, I'm thinking potentially the 8th, if we want to go the reso route and they're available, we can scrounge up some people and see if we can get a quorum, or the 28th. At the moment, we really only have the one item listed, and we're going to add another item as well.
Okay. So it seems like the full board option is pretty close to a no-go. The just forgetting about it and not doing anything is a no-go, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important for us to comment on it in one way, shape, or form.
So I think if we do it on the 28th, we should do the letter. I don't think we should do,
Agreed.
yeah. Let's hear from some other people. Their hands raised. Kevin, is your hand about this particular issue?
No, it's from Environment and Parks. I just wanted to correct. I have an update from Susan Steinberg. She will not be attending the meeting, so do not send her a panel discussion. She has a family conflict. She will be sending somebody else in her place. That's
Okay,
all.
so yeah, either send us that person's name. We'll send it to Brendan, and he will coordinate all the panelist invites that need to go out.
All right. As soon as I get it, I'll send it over.
Thank
All
you.
right. Yeah. Jean, is your comment about this particular issue?
Yes, it is.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I agree that stapling this onto the front of full board would be a disaster. I think a letter could work as fine as a reso if we can't find a date that works. It's easy enough to get comments from people on the committee and sweep them all into one place. And since this isn't in our district, we don't really have to technically hold a public hearing on it. So we really need to get the committee's feedback about it primarily. And I think that would work. I'd say, oh, gee, I'll take it on a transportation, but I've already got at least a 90-minute meeting of stuff already. So the committee's been, as B, I see B's face on my screen. As B can tell you, we've been working really hard for the last several months. And the last thing I want to do is end this term with another 3-hour meeting. I want to give everybody a chance to breathe before they head out for the summer. So that's the logic behind that.
Thank you, Jean.
So one point of clarification. We normally would not have had to comment on this, but the land use committee did ask to hear this. So we actually had to make a special request to city planning in order to refer this to us. So as far as they're concerned, we now have to comment on this. We could withdraw that special request if in fact we don't want to have anything to do with this. We just couldn't make it work. But for right now, we are getting this thing, and we will be expected to comment.
No, Jesus, I understand that. What I'm suggesting is just that we can do it without having to hold a public hearing necessarily if we can't find a date, simply because we're not on the firing line. It's not our district. But I agree with everything else you said. Yeah, we asked for it, so we have to do something about it. We can't just say, well, forget it. And we do want to comment on it. So there's that too.
Okay. B?
Yeah, I was just going to echo what Jesus said, and Adam, and what you said. I think it's adjacent. I think the 28th would be great. And I think a letter could be as strong. This is not primary for us. I would just settle and do it on the 28th and have a pretty strong letter. I think you probably know what some of the things are you heard from the other community board. And I wouldn't try to squeeze it in any other time.
All right. So I think in terms of the order of operations here, I think the preferred alternative, let's just park it on the existing 28th. And I guess, Jesus, if you could ask to see if they're open to the 8th, that would be great. But, let's just for the time being, for the purposes of everything here, we're just gonna hear it on the 28th. And so that means that the health and wellness element would be held with Kavitha's meeting with the hotel zoning text amendment. And in essence, hopefully this makes both meetings easier and more manageable and digestible.
All right, so we would move health and fitness to strategic community planning. And we would also already have the text amendment for the hotels, their hotel special permit. And then that means we would have nothing left for June 2nd. So we could cancel this.
Cancel it outright, please.
Okay, we'll cancel this. And that means that June 28th, we'll have the text amendment on open restaurants. That one has not certified yet, but it's projected to certify on June 7th, which means that there will be time to hear it at the June 28th Land Use Committee meeting. Because it certifies in June, we get an additional 30 days to hear it because it's over the summer. So that means that with the 9-day sort of interregnum period between certification and public review, the beginning of public review, that's 99 days that we have, which means that we have the entire summer to write the open restaurant text amendment resolution, and we could vote on it at September's full board, and with a few days to spare to submit it. So that one is, we have time for that one. So the June 28th would be that, and possibly budget requests if there's time.
Yes, and so that was because we were going to talk about that in the June 2nd. So can you add 2 lines here? It'd be budget requests, and then also we're going to have a brief discussion on what Lou brought up at the last meeting regarding the electric chargers.
All right, I'm not sure he sent us that, so I'm still Lou electric chargers. I'll put this very vaguely, and then we'll.
Yeah, that sounds good. Again, we're gonna or not again. We'll talk about it as much as sort of Lou or existing materials that we have. And I think the idea is it's just sort of a jumping off point, and then sort of a homework summer assignment for people who are interested. And then for the September meeting, we can potentially pass a resolution or do something.
I will reach out to the developers to see if in fact the 28th works for them. Hopefully it will. And I've already reached out to about the 8th, so maybe they'll say that.
Okay.
If they say, yes, the 28th works, yes, the 8th works, is there a preference for one or the other?
Let's just do the 28th. Let's just do it all in one shebang. But however, if the 8th works, but somehow the 28th doesn't, then yeah.
Then
So
I'll
just
reach
as
out to the committee.
Yeah, I feel like we're so close with this, and I just want to thank you, just for herding all the cats and the goats and all the other sorts of things to get this together. It's not an easy sort of thing. It's a massive sort of game of telephone and back and forth with 10 different parties. So thank you. We're so close to finally getting this.
No worries. It's city planning gave us quite a task this summer. I'll try not to take it personally.
Yeah, and so I've taken way too much of everybody's time. Like Gene said, maybe we can discuss within new business sort of potential follow-ups for the what we saw regarding the waterside pier and some other things, and we can move on to others.
All right, so are there any other questions for land use and for Adam? And Jesus, do you have any clarifying things with land use, or you all set?
No, we will cancel June 2nd, so at least that's some good news for the committee members. And this stays unchanged, but we're waiting for it to certify. I will follow up with the developers about the 28th to see if that works for them. Hopefully it will. We will also add an item about budget requests to the June 28th land use committee meeting. And once Lou gives us whatever material he was referring to at the meeting, we will workshop some language about that item and add that to the end of the agenda.
Wonderful. Thank you all. And sorry for taking up way too much time. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up, we have strategic community planning. Kavitha.
Hi, guys. So thank you for that. I didn't want to jump in while you guys were working that out, but I'm basically fine with what looks like is going to happen. So we'll have the hotels and the health and fitness text amendments right at our June 3rd. And I think they're both straightforward, but obviously we have to go through the whole presentation and all that. So hopefully we can get through that pretty quickly. I don't know if we want to make this, Adam, a joint meeting with land use in any way, because if you did, we could do that. It's still an option for me. And we are going to talk about some budget. Let me see, do I still have that on there? Yes, we have the budget requests items that could be talked about like comprehensively if you wanted to. And then the outreach MSBI will probably be just like a very short, maybe it'll even be moved into the chair's report because I don't have any real updates on that at this point. So we'll try to kind of condense this into something manageable. And then just going backwards, last month to recap, we had the comprehensive planning framework. We passed that resolution, so that was all good. And we did start talking about the budget priorities and moving into like requests for partnerships. The budget priorities, we took 5 of them that we thought were kind of most related to our goals in our committee, but they all belong to other committees. So There are items within land use, within housing, I believe within health, and also parks. So I can reach out to you guys separately on that, but just, it's the ones that are in like kind of the top 10, the new park and all these things. So I'd like to kind of work together. And the only thing we wanted to offer up from our committee was to really look at the descriptions and see if we could kind of flesh them out, maybe put some more backup or data or clarify things. I know on the waterfront, I think it's a continuous esplanade one, we talked about making sure that also includes access to the waterfront, not just the continuous esplanade, but how do we get there? So things like that, we're going to continue to do. And then I think, Kyle, I probably owe you a new work plan, although we're kind of following our general work plan. There might be some tweaks to it, so I'll send you that before we meet. And I did bring up that thing about the community planning fellow. Should that be now, or should I talk about that later in the?
Let's do it in new business, because I think a couple of people want to talk about some of that stuff. So we'll put that for new business.
Okay, so that's all I really have.
All right, I see a couple of hands for you. So Adam, you want to go first?
Kavitha, just following up, I'm indifferent if having a joint meeting. I'll be there. So whatever the mechanics are, again, this is we're sort of hijacking your committee. So whatever you want us to do, let us know.
Yeah, it was selfish on my part, thinking that maybe you could. I'm pretty familiar now with the hotels text amendment. I get the other one, the health and fitness one seems really straightforward, but if there's anything more about that or wanted to kind of.
Yeah, I'm happy to help out and take the lead on the health and fitness one.
Yeah.
Because I hate writing those resos and I think it's a great idea. So whatever I can do to.
Right, we're gonna kind of pre-write a reso draft for hotels, I think, knowing what we know at this point. Maybe the same for health and fitness. I'm not sure if that's the idea.
Yeah, I can start preparing materials for that.
Okay, I'll leave that up to you. It's probably good that we moved the Commodore off of this agenda. We would have been there all night. I just didn't want to have back-to-back like giant meetings because I have to be at both of them anyway. So
I hear you.
So that's fine. Did somebody else?
Yep, we got Rick.
So we'll leave this a strategic community planning committee meeting, but not joint. Administratively, it's a little bit more complex to do it joint. So if there's not
quorum of both committees, and
if there's not a pressing desire to have it be joint, let's just have it single.
Okay. And I think Rick.
Yeah, Kavitha, for the purposes of the district needs, we would love to have you fill in more detail, some clarification, some data. All that would be great. I just want to point out that in the budget part, we are constricted on the number of characters we can use in the format, but in the narrative portion, we can say more. So whatever you've got, whatever you people can put together, we will welcome immensely. Thank you very much.
Sure, and you mean in the Airtable we're limited, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know if the Airtable actually has the same limit, but the items that are on the Airtable are what have limits when it goes into the document.
Mm-hmm.
There's the other portion of the document, we talk about some of the things in a little bit more detail.
Okay.
And you can see it in the housing and homelessness portions that Corinne and Rich did last year. They ran into this. They gave us some great information. Some of it had to be cut back for the purposes of the budget request, but we used them in the narrative. So we would do the same thing with you, and we'll work with you on that over the summer.
Perfect. That sounds great.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, the Airtable itself does not have any limits, but city planning for these blurbs for the budget requests imposes an 800 character limit. So we've imposed the same limit here. So all we have to do is work in the Airtable and then just paste it into the portal that DCP gives us. At city planning, at Kavitha's last meeting, her committee did start suggesting some changes. So what I've done, and I imagine more will be coming from hers and other committees, what I've done is I've hidden the current blurb column, and I have put here a proposed blurb for the next fiscal year, which is fiscal year 23. That's the one that we're working on. and it will have the current blurb and then any changes that are proposed so that we can sort of compare them and then decide, okay, do we want the new one or do we want to stick with the old one? I think that'll be the best way of handling that. And we'll also have little notes that indicate what changes were done. And we will always be monitoring this to make sure that it's under 800 characters. Otherwise, we're going to have to be forced to make last minute decisions on the fly. And, at least this way, everybody knows what'll go in.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks, Jesus. That looks great.
All right. Are there any other questions for Kavitha? All right. Thank you, Kavitha. Next up, we have transportation. Gene.
Oh yeah, I have to talk again. Okay. Yeah, just thinking about DCP and its limits. Kavitha, you were at land use, so you saw those 5 or 6 choices they gave us. Supportive with reservations, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, if they could get this down to like A, B, C, D, and E as choices, I think they would do that. So anything that you can add to counteract that tendency toward minimalism, I think would be great. Okay. Yeah, we're going to discuss, since all of our elected officials, local elected officials from the borough president on down have come out in support of expanding 2nd Avenue bike lane to 2 lanes, we're going to discuss a resolution that supports their position and asking DOT to conduct the appropriate studies for the feasibility and the layout, et cetera, of that bike lane. So that'll take a while. This is a Carlina Rivera bill in the city council, which, surprise, will allow food delivery people to actually use the toilets in the establishments that they are delivering food for. This is a major breakthrough, apparently, because until now, as most of you surely know, it's been a random process. Some of them are allowed to use the bathrooms and others are not. And it's pretty crazy. Jesus, we do have another tentative item that I have to confirm. This would be another list of those ADA compliant pedestrian signals. I'd asked members on the committee after the initial tranche of them to look around and see what else they found. And I've heard from one with a list of sites, and I'm poking the other one to get her list of sites. And as long as I can get that between now and the committee meeting, we will do that, because that should be pretty easy. And that way we'll front end load this entire thing so that when they start doing these in the fall, we'll be high up on the line.
I'll take a look at the language that was used the last time this was discussed, and we'll fashion it after that.
Terrific. And I'm always happy. You can send it to me and I'm happy to tweak it or do whatever is necessary as usual. Yes, we will be finishing our budget requests discussions, Rick. So you should be getting the rest of those after this meeting. And that's hopefully pretty much it.
Okay, thank you, Gene. Are there any questions for Gene and transportation? Jesus, any clarifying things you need?
Gene, do you need any guests for items 1 or 2 or 3 or this ADA thing?
No, not that I'm aware of. I'll think about that. I hadn't thought that we did, but I'll give it another thought, and then I'll contact you, because maybe we should get somebody to talk about the Carlina's bill, for example.
Okay, yeah, just let Brendan know, and with as much time as you can, and he'll take care of it.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to Health and Human Services. Elvie.
Hi, good evening, everyone. We have 2 items for our next meeting. The first one is to discuss the plan for the CB6 NYU Langone Healthy Living Series for the fall 2021 to early spring of 2022. And second is to discuss on legislation regarding nurse staffing at hospitals and nursing homes in New York State. And we will not meet in July and August. recap a previous meeting. We had a comprehensive presentation on New York Project Hope Crisis Counseling as a response to COVID-19 by Alex Gomez, the director of New York Project Hope in the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. And the request for partnerships. So we plan to collaborate with NYU Langone Health on the series of health presentations. That's all.
Okay. Thank you, LV. Are there any questions for LV in Health and Human Services? Jesus, do you need any clarifying information?
No, I don't think so. Brendan has been following these items pretty closely, so I think he knows what to do with them.
Okay. Thank you, LV. Next up, Rick with Budget and Governmental Affairs.
We will not be having a meeting in June. I think I've reported on the last meeting we had, which was before full board. But if I didn't, we were getting some very helpful cooperation from the elected officials, the representatives from the elected officials. And I'm really glad that we've been able to make that the contact, because we've learned some things that are in the works, and we learn them a little bit farther in advance. We want to continue to develop those kind of connections a little bit more. Kyle, we need to get you involved in that too directly, because it's better sometimes. It's better to have you as board chair be in contact with the elected officials. We can deal with the staff members.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate everybody putting on their agendas, the budget requests. It sounds like we're well on our way, so I won't harangue you about getting them in, but please do get your budget requests in. You can send them in to Jesus. You can see that he already is taking charge of getting them into the Airtable and updating them. It's extremely helpful to the committee, because actually it comes down to it, like one committee member and Jesus are going to be the people who put it all together. So that's pretty much it. We may meet in August if we have to, but otherwise we hope we don't meet over the summer.
Right, thank you, Rick. Are there any questions for Budget and Governmental Affairs? Okay. Jesus, do you need anything from him?
No.
Okay. Next up, we have Public Safety.
Sure. So, yeah, no meeting for June. We'll take it month by month as far as July or August, if any urgent matters come up. But hopefully, no meetings until September. We did hear a couple of things last week with regards to police reform, but the committee really, wanted to table the any action until the fall, at least, just to see where things land. So that is pretty much all I have for public safety.
All right, are there any questions for Matt in Public Safety? Jesus, any clarifying information needed?
No, not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Next up, Housing and Homelessness, Corinne.
We don't have a lot to report. It's been quiet on the home front. I know that Kevin did a great job talking with the new restaurant Rosemary and the homeless encampment just on the other side of that patch of plans. So thank you, Kevin. And no meeting in June.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks to BRC, who was very responsive to our outreach on that.
BRC is fantastic. And do you know where they ended up, or did anybody ask, or if BRC themselves took in this particular these particular unhoused people? I'm just curious.
No, we don't have. Sorry, Kyle. I'm raising my hand now. I sorry to break the rule earlier.
Right. I'm recognizing you now. Go ahead.
Called myself out. We did not see a close encounter of the third kind. So we can't say for sure that it was the BRC, but they did say they were canvassing the area and they would go to that location. Soon after that, the group of 3 men unhoused were gone with all of their belongings, and there was quite a few, including a barbecue grill. And so, but no close encounter of the third kind.
Oh, okay, great.
It's
Thank
because
you.
it's because of the exhaust. It's a warm place to sleep, actually.
Exactly.
During the cold times. Yeah. Gene, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I do. Because I'm 90+% sure that the folks that were camped out by Rosemary's are back to where they had been camping out on and off for several years now, which is under the FDR drive beneath my apartment. Because the accoutrements, let's say, are exactly the same as the stuff I saw on the corner of 20th Street and First Avenue. And it's 3 guys. So they've been living there on and off for at least 5-6 years a lot of the time. They're next to one of the pillars, behind one of the Jersey barricades. From the street level, as you go past on Avenue C, car or foot, you don't even see that they're there. And they're sheltered from the sun and stuff like that. I think what happened was that the construction for the ESCR was poking around down there. They did cleanup and space moving around and stuff like that. And I suspect that may have been one of the prompts that got those guys to leave for a few days. And once that stopped, they came back. Now, of course, that's going to happen again in somewhere between 3 and 6 months. So we'll see what happens then.
Thank you, Gene.
Yeah, which actually, thank you for that background, which what pops in my head. You know, there's the couple with a dog that lives right there at the FDR on 20th Street. What's going to happen when the resilience work starts? With there's quite a few people that are really made their home in that area.
It floats between half a dozen and a dozen anyway. I don't know. Because they're going to be tied up doing the north half of the park for Adam. What is it, the next 3 to 6 months, something like that? The schedule keeps moving around. So so for that length of time anyway, they'll probably be okay where they are. But after that, I don't know, because since they're going to reopen the north end of the park, I'm assuming they're also hopefully going to be moving the staging area down to the south end of the park, which means these folks could move up to the north end of the park under the FDR drive, if that's what happens. But until it happens, I mean, as Adam can attest, the information that we get from the folks that are working on this is fungible and changes rapidly. So I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it's something we can ask our elected officials, like what their plan is.
Yeah.
If there is a plan at
Well,
all.
Until DDC knows what the plan is, no one's going to know. No one's going to know what the plan is, and that's where this buck happens to. It doesn't even stop there; it just sort of rolls around there, as Adam can also attest, I think.
Thanks.
Adam, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'll just echo everything that Gene said. I know from my sort of travails over there, I've seen similar sorts of situations, and yeah, so they're at least going to work on that for the next several months, and then eventually the goal is just to flip it. So there's a chance for them for the same conditions or whatever to happen on the northern end as opposed to the southern end. Yeah, we'll see.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions or comments for Corinne and housing and homelessness? Jesus, any clarifying information needed?
No, not at this time.
All right, so let's move on to youth and education. John?
Okay, so our meeting schedule was thrown off in relation to reporting. We reported on the April meeting at the JET full board last week, where we had a large participation on a Zoom project that we co-sponsored with CEC2 and CB2. At last night's meeting, we discussed the work that Councilmember Kalos is doing on trying to find storefront spaces available for future for pre-K and 3K, and that actually segues into the bottom part of what I should be reporting on, which is requests for partnerships, because Claire has the agenda of the, I'm still going to call it BASA, and I know it's not the right name, meeting tomorrow on storefronts. So we've invited the council members' staff to come and talk to us more there about storefront availability and how we go about getting it. And I think it will be very useful and interesting presentation. Our next agenda we just want to have a very friendly conversation about the implications of marijuana legalization and the activities of smoke shops. There's nothing illegal taking place now because the law hasn't gone into effect. But we really do want to engage schools where smoke shops are nearby, and just give their PA leaders and others a chance to come in and early on in the game get into dialogue. So we will ask someone from Senator Kruger's office to come in and talk, and it will be a collegial conversation, not a confrontation, and I'll make sure of that. And then last night we were supposed to have a update on our partnership between CV6 and the Department of Youth and Community Development. That for various reasons we couldn't have due to other commitments of a committee member, but we will have that at our next month's meeting. And I think it's fair to guess that we will have more on the pre-K and 3K opportunities. As far as the committee vision goes, it's evolving in the direction that I was hoping it would, where we find very, very practical issues for individual schools that we could do. As I've said many times here, the education space is full of advocates and committees and councils and elected people. And we want to be very practical for the schools in our district as to what's on their mind and what they need, and getting them in to talk about marijuana in smoke shops is an example of that. And I think that should do it.
All right, thank you, John. I see there's a hand up for you, Kevin.
Me, Kevin.
Hey, John. Thank you for pointing out at our last meeting, the nets did go up at PS 116. I have donation of 11 more nets that I have here. Didn't know the best way to reach out to other schools. PS 116.
That's great. Let's talk. You want to talk offline? I mean, because
yeah, I just wanted if you want to just take it from there, or we could talk about it offline. But if you have other schools that are in need, I've got at least 11 right now that I'm willing to put up.
Okay, let me nose around. And one of the things I want to do once we have a full committee, and well, this is more for a conversation with Kyle and Jesus, as to participation and everything. But I want to have a committee member, each one of us have 2 or 3 schools that we are accountable for. So ideally, if you ask this question a few months from now, everybody will have a contact to call. But I think I'll be doing most of the calling this time.
Great, thank you for that update.
Right. Any other questions or comments for John and Youth and Education? Is there any clarifying information needed?
Not at this time.
All right, let's move on to business affairs and licensing.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I didn't introduce or welcome Anton earlier, but he's here this evening because I'm going to be away for our June meeting and he's going to take over. We are meeting tomorrow for May, so we haven't really gotten to June yet, but as John mentioned, we're hoping that someone from Kalos's office is going to kind of talk about open storefronts with us tomorrow. And then also Kyle introduced us to this group Chashama. I don't really know how to pronounce it, but they're going to come to present about kind of transforming unused space and giving it to artists to set up and also like do lessons and shows. So that should be interesting. But for June, we also have a lot of licenses to hear from in May, and I expect it to continue in June as well. But other than renewals, I'm not really sure what will be discussed in our June meeting at this point.
Awesome. Thank you, Claire. Are there any questions or comments for Claire in business affairs and licensing? And I actually encourage everybody to attend tomorrow's meeting because the organization Chashama, their idea is using unused spaces to show off the spaces within the district. So it's really a revitalization approach. So places that have been empty for a long time, they utilize to for art galleries, for other types of uses to really show off the space while it's not being used or rented out to a small business. So if there are spaces that you are aware of in your particular neighborhood or on your block, definitely show up because you can talk about that and make those suggestions there. Because I think this is a really great connection in terms of revitalizing the neighborhood, especially as we get out of the pandemic. John, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just wondering if they could put art up in a pre-K space so we could kill two birds with one stone.
Sure.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
All right.
you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Jesus, any clarifying information needed?
No, thank you.
Okay. So we are now to the old or new business section. If any committee member has any old or new business, please raise your hand. Yep, Kavitha.
Sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to mention again the community planning fellow opportunity and whether, that was something. I know it's due in a couple of days, so it's pretty tight, but I thought of a couple of projects we could potentially look at through strategic community planning or like partner with other committees on things. A few of those thoughts I had were kind of reviewing the 197A that's out there already, looking at community engagement for MSBI, but also that whole discussion of the budget requests and getting more data behind that, kind of putting that together as a project that the person could work with multiple, chairs or committee members on. So just wanted your thoughts on that and whether I should pursue any of those if you think those would be useful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, Adam, you had similar thoughts. Do you want to add anything?
Sure, absolutely. I think everything that Kavitha said was great. I think it all should be for consideration. My idea for this was potentially exploring public restrooms, specifically like in parks and those sorts of things. I know this has come up in a few different committees. So again, what if we can do something by Friday, I think this would be a valuable resource for the board. So hopefully we can make something happen.
Yeah. And Jesus, could you remind us of the process again, what we need? I think we need the specific project and role and responsibilities, correct?
Yes, they are due Friday, and there's a form that needs to be completed. The community board needs to identify 2 project proposals, and write them up. There are certain categories that they can fall into. You have to answer questions such as like the research question or issue to be addressed or a specific activity to be conducted. You have to look at the background and importance to the community board to make sure that it's a worthwhile project for the community board, not just busy work. Whether there's any previous relevant research or other kinds of similar projects or data resources. You need to identify what particular technical skills and qualities may be required because they need to match up the project with a fellow who could actually carry it out. If there's going to be any community partners involved, which doesn't sound to be the case with us, so that's not. But if there are, they need to be identified. And we need to specify a clear idea of what the deliverable will look like. In looking at Kavitha's suggestions, they look good. I'm not sure about the one about the budget requests. That seems mostly like it's like sort of a research project that may not be utilizing the fellow to the fullest potential. So I don't know if that one would get accepted. But the one about the going through the 197A, previous 197A, and really exploring that seems like potentially really, really intriguing. So I mean, that one could be one of them. And then the one about Mount Sinai, Beth Israel, that could have good potential too, but we need to be very clear on what we would want them to do and what their final deliverable will look like, because they will have to, normally what they do is they present the deliverable at a committee meeting, and they will definitely have to present the deliverable at a sort of fellow meeting that they hold internally with their own fellowship. So it needs to be a project that has something at the very end.
Adam, do you have a follow-up to that?
No, go ahead and call on Gene and Rick. I'll talk after them.
Yep. Rick, go ahead. Rick, you're on mute.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out that when you pick out something to, I think this position is great. I mean, if we can really be helpful, but it also takes supervision. And that means that the more complex the project, the more complex the supervision and the amount of time it takes. If we just assume that Jesus can do this, I think that's unfair to Jesus's job. So if we're proposing things, we really should also be proposing how is it going to be supervised.
Exactly. Thank you, Rick. Gene, do you have a follow-up?
Thank you, Rick, because that was one of the things that I had in mind myself. I'm glad you spoke to it. The other one was Kavitha. When we were talking about some of these things a couple of months ago, one of the things that you said really struck me was that we were talking about the comprehensive planning thing that we just passed that reso about. And one of the things you said was that any 197A plan that was over 10 years old would be automatically disqualified from even being part of the process or something to that effect. And you added that ours is already that age. So for me, that suggests a really strong urgency on top of other reasons to just have somebody focus really on that plan. It's been a long time since we've done much more than poke at it and sort of darn it here and stitch it there. I mean, we really need, I think, to go back and look at it in terms of everything that's happened over the last 10 years and then redefine goals going forward based on what already exists. That'd be my suggestion anyway.
Yeah, modernizing it. Kavitha, go ahead.
I think Adam can go first.
Okay.
Oh, no, please go ahead and respond, Gene.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Gene. I agree. And I think of the ones I brought up, that's the most important to me. And it has the most meat already out there that they can look into. So I'm happy to supervise along with whoever else would be, people who maybe worked on it in the past or are more knowledgeable. And I know Jesus, hopefully, if you get somebody new on board, maybe there'll be a little more opportunity for assistance from the office, but I mainly put these forward with the idea that I would help supervise, if we bring someone on. And I wouldn't offer up more than one, since we can only, I think, submit two. Adam, if you wanted to do the other, the one on the restrooms, I think that has come up multiple times. I don't know if that's something that, we want.
Yeah, let's work so we can submit something before Friday.
Okay.
And loop me in on that too, so I can help out in any way. Whatever help you need from me, I can help on that.
Absolutely.
Kavitha, do you still have the link to the form?
I do. I was looking at it when I decided I could actually do this. I looked at it in detail to make sure it wasn't too scary.
Yeah.
And it's not too scary.
Yeah, I don't think the proposal needs to be super long, but it does need to address all those concerns that are on the form.
Right.
If you'd like me to, give it a read before you submit it, I can certainly do, because I actually think I have to
You
submit
have
it.
to submit it, yes.
I
Sorry
have
to
to submit it, so
submit it.
so yeah. So Adam, yeah, either Kavitha will send you the link, or if she doesn't, I can.
Yeah,
But
we'll be in touch.
yeah, like ASAP, because
Yep.
it's due Friday.
That's right.
Adam, go ahead. Did you have a?
Oh yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, I just wanted to sort of piggyback on this. So again, I think this is a very good program. I think this is a great opportunity for the board. But I immediately started thinking that, the cup filleth over with good ideas. Is there a way to partner with potentially like NYU or, just a school, as opposed to one person, but like a class or something like that, and kind of use us as a partnership. Have we done something like that in the recent past? I know that's a whole thing. We've probably missed the boat for the fall semester, but I don't know, just something to consider if we have more ideas percolating.
Yeah, for sure. We can definitely talk about that.
Another time, yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking about like Baruch, for example. Their president is really interested in connecting with the community board. I met with him a couple of months ago, just introduced ourselves, and is really excited about things like that. So we can get into more detail on that. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Cool. All right. So is there any other old or new business? If you do, please raise your hand. Adam?
I'm so sorry. I don't mean to.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Jesus. Anyway, I wanted to bring up, basically, I guess this is for both you and Jesus. Have we heard anything more about sort of the return to normalcy, like in terms of what we're thinking in terms of like future meetings or things of that nature? There could be no update, or it could be we'll find out in the fall or something like that. Just wanted to see if anything has happened.
Yeah,
we have not, unfortunately. I wish we knew, but we have not. We're awaiting word at this point from the state, so it's a governor's office thing. But no, we have not. I know that the budget committee was maybe toying with the idea of using the summer to kind of formulate thoughts on what they would like future meetings to look like. I don't know if that's still in the works. Other community boards had expressed similar interests, but I don't know whether that had any staying power. But yeah, unfortunately, nothing really major to report there.
Okay, thanks. I mean, personally,
Oh no, go ahead, Adam.
I was going to say, personally, like Kavitha has floated this before in the past. If there's a way to potentially do it outside and socially distance, I potentially would be a fan of that. So we'll wait for guidance, but if we can do it, please let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know, as you mentioned, Budget and Governmental Affairs discussed this, looking over the results of the survey that we had put out at the beginning of this year. A lot of the public expressed some sort of like hybrid model. Big surprise, because the virtual aspect did allow people to have flexibility with their schedule, and people who previously were unable to attend to now attend. That's similar to other community board chairs as well, as when I've spoken with them, as they've appreciated that flexibility. Obviously, we also like the idea of seeing our people in person and our friends and things of that nature. If there's no resolution coming on that, we could probably just send a letter. I'm sure there will be some sort of discussion, but yeah, we haven't heard any directives from the legislature or the governor about how public meetings are going to take place going forth.
But people are talking about it, and in fact, the urban planning department at Hunter College is actually currently undertaking a study on graduate students from that department are actually undertaking a study on the impact of COVID on community board meetings. So it's something that that is getting academic interest, which is very exciting. I unfortunately am not optimistic that government will have learned a lot from a very radical experiment that we have just undertaken. But I always have faith in the groves of Academe. So.
Jean?
Yeah, thanks. I wanted to go back to Waterside Pier. Because as Kavitha and Adam know, at the Land Use Committee meeting, by the time we were, this was, I forget how many hours into that meeting that we were into it. When we finally got to that, toward the end, they said, well, we're going to be closing the park for July and August to be improving it to mitigate the ESCR conditions that your district is facing. This seems, at least to me in my lowly intellectual state, counterintuitive. I mean, summer being the height of the season when the parks are most needed. Let's close it down to do what, to be fair, is a pretty minimalist treatment of the pier. A couple of pieces of AstroTurf, some colorform shapes from the 1980s, and some plaques that tell you to turn on your radio and dial into the hits of the 1980s, because it's the new wave pier. So it's not like there's some great amount of thought and detailed planning that went into this. It was pretty much catch as catch can. And why they couldn't do this and say, oh, pick a time, October, as opposed to July and August, when people are actually going to need the space, is beyond me. So I just wanted to bring that up and get a sense of what the committee wanted to do, if anything, and how to proceed.
Adam, do you have a follow-up to that? Is that what your answer is?
Yeah, so they're supposed to get back to us, at least in terms of a more concrete construction schedule and then sort of their plan. I think there were a couple other things. I haven't heard back, so maybe we should follow up with them. But yeah, like I think if we wanted to write a letter or something, I don't think it's the worst idea. And Gene had suggested, even reaching out to to Powers' office to make sure that they're in the loop and that they can actually do something about it. What they did say was that if they phased it, it would take longer and it'd be less optimal, yada, yada, yada. But that's what they said. But if we don't ask, we don't get. So.
Yeah, well, that space actually phasing, it's not like Sty Cove Park. There aren't two ends to it. There's only one. There's one way in. So no matter how they phase it,
yeah, it's
most of it's going to be shut.
Yeah, some turf. I don't know. I think they're supposed to get back to us with more details. So we should shoot them an email tomorrow and see if get us more information.
It's the construction timeline is right in the middle of the summer, right when people are going to need the space, right when they're going to go looking for it, right? That's going to be when it's gone. And this is just crazy to me.
Agreed. We'll follow up on that. Adam, do you have additional? Okay, that was just a follow-up.
No.
Rick?
Yeah, I sat in, I listened in on the meeting, and there was one thing that bothered me was it seems that they've paid no attention to a charrette that was done maybe 10 years ago, where the community got together and offered all these different ideas on how to use that space. And there is nothing from that charrette that showed up in how they're going to use that space. This whole 80s vibe, which I take personal offense at, by the way, I having lived through them. But if you could just bring it up, just sort of snarkily, did you guys ever think about looking at what has been the community input before? I think it'd be interesting to know. And I would just second Gene's concern about closing down. They're already closing down parts of Glick, I think, and other places along for the ESCRE stuff. It just seems like too much of a burden. We should be doing things that increase the opportunity to have outdoor space, not decrease it, just at the most inopportune time.
All right. Adam, you have a follow-up?
Yeah, just a follow-up. So, I mean, in their defense, I mean, I think you can definitely take umbrage with their aesthetics. As an 80s baby, I think I'm kind of over the retro 80s feel myself. But anyway, in their defense, that this is also supposed to be a short-term activation, and so the idea is that this will later give way to some more permanent investments that potentially would incorporate the charrette and those sorts of stuff. So again, they're trying to do something for what they can now within the limited budget scope and toolkit that they had. You know, there was very specific things that they said we could have or we couldn't have. So, yeah.
All right. So is there any other old or new business? Seeing none, the meeting is adjourned at 7:55 p.m. All right, thank you, everybody. Have a great night and go Knicks.
Yeah, thank you. And everybody, we have to explain the 80